happy to have this talk. It's going to be fairly technical. It can be as technical, I guess, as these guys want. I'm your facilitator today. I'll introduce the topic. So welcome to this session on industrializing no-code the Qonto way, not anyway. And so our two speakers today, and don't be confused by their shirt, because actually we have Maxime on your right side, who's from Qonto, who's the head of products at Qonto, and on your left side, Quentin, who is a no-code maker and works for Alegria and Qonto. And be your host for this session. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer at Alegria. I hope the sound is okay. We will find out afterwards. Great. So, a quick question to just warm you up, if you need. About so we're going to deep dive right into this topic of how you can really use no code in products that have already scaled, and products that have a lot of constraints. We're not talking about starting a project with no code here. And so, in your opinion, in this context, right? In a context where you have companies that are scaled already, what do you think should be a good development time ratio in a no-code context? Like, how much do you think you should spend on researching, documenting, preparing versus development time? Do you have like numbers?
80-20.
80-20?
Yeah.
That's okay. That's 80 documenting, preparing, researching, and 20.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Some other guesses? Or you all agree with that?
They do.
Yeah. How much do you think is in traditional development? We'll answer more than this question, but what's the ratio you were targeting at Qonto, I guess?
Actually, we don't have a proper ratio like that. 80-20, no, it's more about we have steps, an operating step, with different steps, and at each step we have a definition of done, and we take the time needed. We have some target cost, meaning expected time for each step, but it can be longer or it can be quicker. But of course, it's close to 80-20, or even less than that, 90-10. Yeah, it's far from what we see in the reality when we are talking about the code. Because usually the code is a bit like what we hear from the street is, okay, I code directly. And I don't think before coding. But there is a big gap between where we come from, because we come from this world as well, and we face many issues. And right now we adopted the operating system that is exactly the same as for any stack. So for engineer, Ruby, Go, we have the same operating system as our makers developing in Nocode. So no, exactly the same.
So the ratio is different than traditional development.
No, the ratio is the same.
The process is the same.
The process is exactly the same, the ratio is exactly the same. So for small improvements, you take discovery. It's around less than a week of discovery, like finding a catalog of solutions that you will show to the makers. Then you have a phase of value engineering, where a maker and product manager are working together, analyzing all of what we call the hard points, the challenge, the technical challenge, product challenge, can be other type of challenge as well, performance, and it's around a week for small improvements, size of feature as well. Value engineering. At the end of the value engineering, you have one prototype, meaning you know exactly what your integration feature will do, and you have word specification, where from this prototype you add all of the edge case. In addition of this prototype, you need a strong QA plan. And once you have done that, you can start to already
You dumped a lot of info already on the cloud. We're gonna take a step back over it. Quentin, is this what you're experiencing like when you work with this guy?
Yeah, sure. Just to give more context, so Qonto is a fintech company. So our customers need to get some integration. They need to interface their tools with Qonto, for example. And for this, we create some integration. And we allow them with one click, they can get some automation, which are already ready for them. And they can, for example, share documents between the different tools, etc. For example, we have some integration with Notion, with Deleglise, with a lot of tools. And we needed.
We can barely hear you.
Sorry?
Can you speak louder?
Yeah, sure. So we needed a way to develop fast the solution. So we used Developpeur.
I think we are anticipating on this one, and but basically what you're saying is you kind of follow that process.
Yeah, sure.
And so you're spending 90% of your time just documenting research.
It's very important as we are a fintech company, we can't have bugs, etc. So we have to follow a process. We have to make a structure on Nocode, on the Nocode process. So today, Nocode is helping us to build fast, but all the process we built are made in order to avoid having some errors, problems that most of the Nocode tools are doing today. For example, they do not have TDD implemented, so we had to.
So you will have to explain that.
Oh yeah, TDD is in development is when you test your application, you make some code in order to verify that the code you write is correct and do not create bugs or bizarre behaviors, etc. So our process today are blocking these kind of things because Nocode tools do not allow to get this today. There is no TDD features in Nocode tools, so we implemented some test processes, etc., in order to avoid this. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, no, I removed that cap. I see it's like everybody's focusing on it. So we'll cover a few topics today, and we'll try to get to the bottom of what Qonto is doing with Nocode. So to take that step back and get slower than maybe that into the topic, can you maybe explain what you do at Qonto with Nocode? Because I guess maybe some of you are Qonto users, maybe. I know I am, and so can you explain what you do with Nocode that we as customer of Qonto can see and experience in your product?
Yeah, of course. So we use actually many tools for Nocode for many usage. And I will tell you the one story.
We love stories.
So yeah, so one story is about 2 years ago we launched a marketplace, and yeah, maybe before that. So Qonto is a neobank in continental Europe. We are in 4 countries. We have close to 350,000 customers, SME mainly, and freelancers. And we developed an API 5 years ago, a public API, and in the ecosystem of accounting tool and also tools that are correlated close to Qonto, we developed integration. And 2 years ago, we decided, okay, we want to give visibility to this integration. So we created a marketplace. We call it Qonto Connect. And in this marketplace, we said, okay, we want also to build our own integration with third party. So we started to build an integration with Qonto, between Qonto and Slack, using our own developers to build that. So a team of developer is between 3 to 4 backends, 2 to 3 frontend, and for this Slack integration, actually, we spent 3 months on this integration with the tech team. Before we had the discovery with the project manager, so it's a bit more than that in terms of cost. And yeah, we are not happy. We were not happy by the scope at the end, because the more we were advancing, the more actually the size of the cost was increasing. And at the end, we had the scope which was good. We allowed in this integration to trigger a message to alert you when you have a transaction of a certain type and when your balance was low, basically. So it's good, but first feedback from the user is that, yeah, but actually I want more granularity in the triggers. So I would like, I cannot use it because you're spamming me. So I would like to be alerted if the transaction is in credit with Boursorama or with Amazon as a counterparty. And we didn't had implemented this granularity in the integration. So 3 months spent, and at the end, mitigated outputs and an additional cost to invest to maintain this integration or to increase the adoption. And on the other hand, our business at Qonto is not doing integration with Slack. It's building payments capability. So it was quite hard to say, okay, actually we stop there. It will be good enough for part of our customer, but we cannot afford to improve. But it raised one question: how can we beat the competitors? Because we trust that integration makes us more powerful than competitors. It's our competitive advantage. How can we beat the competitors, but without jeopardizing our resources to build the payment system and payment capability? So then we hired, I saw Shubham at the entrance, but yeah, we hired Shubham 2 years ago. And with him, actually, we start building also integration with Zapier and Make, Integromat at that time. And with this integration, external automation tools, actually it was giving the power to our customer to build their own integration. So we were leveraging our API and build this app on Make and Zapier. And what we found out actually, it was that any integration in the marketplace, it's basically a if this then that. And we found out that this actually was something that we could industrialize and that can save us if we do it internally. The if this then that, building this logic, the algorithmic logic, we can build it without having any backend resources involved. So we started to look with Shubham into a solution to industrialize, meaning reduce this 3-month lead time of building an integration internally into something that is less costly with not the same resources. And actually, Nocode came like that. It came from, okay, I have a need, I have constraints, I don't want to use my own backend resources. I want a system that where the entry barrier is low and Nocode with interface, UI to code, that's perfect. I want to be maintained over time. So if the example for Slack, we identified that we want to continue to modify the integration. We can modify it very easily. And basically, we came into a buy versus build approach. Should we create our own language, like Payfit did it with the Jetlang, or should we buy something? So we started with the buy at the beginning, and I think we spent 1 or 2 months trying to build our own language. But at the end, yeah, but it's not our core business as well. And building the language by ourselves is actually taking a lot of our resources to build and maintain this language. So we decided to buy a solution, an engine that will allow us to do the if this then that of all of our integration without the customer to see that actually we are delegating this engine to someone else. And yeah, from this we learn a lot of things. We faced a lot of issues. but actually, the issue that we faced since the implementation of this engine, the integration platform as a service, the name of the engine. So the issue is the same issue that we face with every language. It's about alerting, it's about scalability, performance, edge case identification, and so we started with this tool like really right now I would say like in an amateur way, like trying to build ourselves, and then we faced an issue, as I said, and we decided to come back to something that we know that worked. It's an operating system that I introduced earlier. Operating system that is the same for every language at Qonto, where you have a product manager, you have a specialist in the language, in the code, a maker, and both are working together. And each step is clearly defined, and we don't jump into the code or no code before having a clear use case, clearly identified, a QA plan that shows you the acceptance criteria of your integration. And you also have acceptance criteria on the performance, on the alerting. You build by also thinking on the edge case that may occur and break things. And
yeah,
sure.
he can go on.
The Nocode tools we are using are providing us a lot of advantages. So for the advantages, it's clearly the fact that we can modify something very fast. So we can retrieve our user feedbacks and update our solution directly from the Nocode tools. And it's really important for us because sometimes we have some user interviews, etc. It's a product manager thing, but they retrieve some feedbacks, but during the time, maybe like for Slack, users' needs change, and we wanted to find a way to get this done. So Nocode is good for the flexibility, but it's also very important for us, like we said about the fact of interfacing. When you build an integration in development, in the development way, it's very difficult to find a way to scale it because the specifications are different regarding all the different partners. So for example, if you want to create an application for Google, it's very difficult because they have some process, they have an API which is totally different than for Microsoft, for example, or for Notion, or etc., etc. And every third partners have some specificities which are very difficult in the development way to handle, and using those iPaaS, so SaaS for integration, they already handle it. So it's work we can avoid to do. It's very cool for us because it's saving us a lot of time for the technical stuff about the token, refresh token, etc. We do not have to get this. We just have to create our connection within the tool, and it's really relevant for us because we can focus on what the user wants, what the user needs, etc., instead of passing a lot of time within the development system. So
yeah, one interesting thing that you said is that the approach that we have on each integration is that we have a core, we have a contextualized logic for like the connector for each partner and maybe all the API, and we also have built some kind of use case on the backend logic that is running for each integration. The if this then that is the same for all of the integration of this type. Like for example, you need to get the banking transaction of Qonto and put this banking transaction in a Google Sheet, or in put one transaction in Slack to notify in Slack, or put it in an accounting tool. So you have a core, a main logic that is fetching all of the transaction at Qonto and identifying or sanitizing a bit the transaction to push it somewhere else. So this is the core of the is this then that, and then you have the adapter that has been built for the partner. This is also one approach that we had to be able to industrialize and to look also on my conclusion of the marketplace. So we have this iPass engine. The goal of this engine is was for us to reduce the lead time. Right now, the lead time is around 6 weeks. I think for that it's what?
Yeah, that is a very specific integration because it's a German Quentin tool, so yeah, it's very specific.
But it's around 6 weeks of lead time for integration, where the partner is well documented. It's self-service to get access to their API. There are no private API, things like that. It's one maker by integration, where we don't need any backends. And at the moment at Qonto we have a free maker, so it means like 3 integration builds at the same time. So it allows us to have a pace, hence the industrialization, a real pace of 1 every 2 weeks, let's say, integration that is realistic.
Right. Great. Just to come back on one point that you mentioned about that engine. So this is basically how you got prepared to use and to leverage Nocode, like preparing the stack, the tech that you had before you could use on top Nocode. So how long did it take to get ready, or was it something you would have done anyway, whether you would decide to use Nocode or not, or is it something you've done specifically for Nocode? How long did it take? And the opposite question for you, I asked my question right away because that's that big jump.
Sorry about that.
So, no, it's great. You're the easiest panel to facilitate, so that's great. And Quentin, similarly, like for you, do you have to deep dive into how the underlying business and engine works in Qonto, or can you stay at that abstraction level where you can just like, that you still like researching, documenting, and so on, and with your PM, but like how much do you have to understand what's going on at that lower level in order to do your job and build these integrations for the end users? So I don't know who wants to start first with that. It's basically like, if I recap, it's like how long and how did you get ready for Nocode, and for you, how much you have to understand what's going on to be able to do on top.
So before starting to use iPass, etc., and working for Qonto, I was a freelance developer in Nocode and local tools, so I had already a bit of experience on this. To give you an example, if there is some freelancer here or some people which use something like Mage, about the builder of Mage, you have some components, you bring them, you create some logic, etc. Basically, when I Nocode, I do the exact same thing, but instead of having a workflow for one company, we have a workflow for several thousands of companies. So we have to be careful. In my side, it was very easy to touch those tools because in Qonto there is a process which is called the Qonto web. Maybe Maxime can talk about this, but it's something where in Qonto everything is documented, it's well documented, etc. So when you come, you can see what you have to do. So I'm like, I don't have the word, but yeah, I'm like, I just have to follow the guidelines. I bring my experience to the team to update the process, etc. But everything is documented. We try to create a template. We created a template in order to build an integration. So today, when we want to build an integration, we just have to follow the process. So anyone will join the team, for example, we'll just have to follow the process. That's it. So
on the tech side specifically, I think that I was trying to get to, like, did you have to talk to the engineers and developers at Qonto to understand what's going on, or?
No. But most of the time, I work with the product manager in order to explain to them what technically we can do with the partners API, with our tools, etc. If it is something secure, we verify a lot of things, like security, feasibility, legal things, etc. Yes, most of the time I work with product manager or with the security team, but just for a few questions about, okay, I'm a Nocode maker, I'm just figuring out there's something maybe we have to verify, can we do a call, but that's it. We do not involve the backend team on our integration, and that's
what you were
beautiful part of this year.
Yeah, exactly.
So they can focus on the core product of Qonto.
And you need to
Yeah,
that's right.
I have a question. Okay.
But the question was like, how much you have to prepare, how many you take, how did you prepare to leverage Nocode?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, first, there is one thing that I need to process that we don't have a process. Culturally, actually, the word process is something when you start to implement it starts dying. Like the guy doing the process will teach you how to use this process. It's already dying, and after a few months, there is nothing left. So it's more in the world of, in terms of terminology, it's more standard, and standard is the best way to do something. It's knowledge. So knowledge scale, process does not. Yeah, basically what we are building at Qonto, and this is also the Qonto way, is knowledge. When we see we have a performance issue with the integration Google Sheets that does not scale above 50 users, then it means, okay, how to deal with, we need knowledge and we need to consolidate this knowledge somewhere. It's the standard that helps you to consolidate this knowledge. So yeah, but one precision on the process. So yeah, the standard is here to guide, to also give you knowledge. It's up to you to follow it or not. You can get out of the standard. It's better to get out of the standard, knowing what is the standard, what is the best way to do something. Also, the standard is something that evolves over time. For each issue that we face, we say, okay, what system 2, how can I fix the root cause so that the next time I won't face again the same issue? And then, okay, the finding, I put it in the standard so that I can share it to everyone else. Then, your question. Sorry about the.
No, yeah, I mean, your stage.
Yeah, we started to really industrialize with this approach beginning of this year, and before that we were not really mature, and the industrialization come from a clear operating system, definition of done of each part, and yeah, we use Alegria to find makers. So split the concern. Product manager are for product management. We want specialists of Nocode makers that are equivalent to an engineer on Ruby or on Go. We want the same. We want them to know the logic, the algorithm. We want them to know at least one of the two, like Make, Zapier, and understanding of what is the loop, what is some definition, things like that, the basics. And then we can train. We use Alegria to hire them, to find the right profile, and then they like him. And then we include them in the team. We have some standard to help you. And some training to help you get at speed on the IPS engine that we have. And yeah, basically the formation, the training is 1 or 2 weeks when you it's quite
for someone like him. That's like
yeah.
Okay, pretty good. So you're still in that learning phase, pretty much, or do you consider like, okay, well, now we have that industrialization process? Or like what stage of the learning curve are you on?
I think we are. We have done the 0 to 1. So no, I would say like we are very far from where we were 1 year and a half ago. That's very very far. But here it's more about a lot of small improvements, marginal gains. So in the curve, we have done we are more. In the logarithmic curve, we are in this flat improvement, so we have still a lot to learn. I think we are far. If we look at the competitors, I think we have really dig into the Nocode stuff.
And specifically on that, from a business standpoint, do you have like, how do you quantify like the impact of this integration that you delivered for the end users within your platform? Like, do you have like some results? How do you measure?
So yeah, it's a competitive advantage. Why? Because when you have a bank account in the world of entrepreneur SME, when you find that your bank has an integration that saves you time, you're not willing to leave this account to go somewhere else.
So churn might decrease.
Yeah, churn. So the impact on the retention is plus 15% on users that use at least one integration. So yeah, it brings more revenue in the lifetime value of user. And also we have built recently integration that generate revenue from upsell. So where the logic is a bit heavy or the logic is related to a product that is related to a given plan, then you need to upsell to use this integration. That's the case for Drive-In or Dropbox-In, where actually, so the integration is, you have a folder on your Dropbox. For every invoice you put in this folder, we are taking the invoice, we are reading the invoice, we can associate the invoice to a transaction, and your accounting is already prepared. That's the bookkeeping thing, so you don't have to do it. Or we can put it as to pay, because if we don't find a transaction, it means that we need to pay it, and then you have access to one specific section on a given plan of Qonto to pay it.
So it's like a feature, basically, as a feature on your different plans, and you have to have that specific plan.
It's augmenting an existing feature on a given plan.
All right, pretty cool. I also want to allow time for the audience to ask their questions if they have. And so just to wrap up before we open for questions, basically you started not so long ago with this, but 2 years ago basically, and we are now a year and a half in, and you've already delivered how many integrations so far?
I think we are close to between 15 and 20, I would say.
All right, 20 integrations. How many have you built yourself? So you in like 6, 7, 5? Yeah. So
I also made some.
So you can see the outcome with directly with live users from at scale right away when you deliver something.
Yeah, sure.
So pretty cool. And I guess the closing question before we open the question is like, okay, what are the takeaways, or if you were to start again, what would you do differently, or what can you advise other people to do when they want to add it? Because this is something that is not just add value for banks, right? It can like be added to many other types of platforms with these integrations, possibly Nocode as well. So in the audience, some people could envision adding this to their product. So what are the learnings that you're willing to share? I understand you want to keep some.
How long do we have?
All right, so you have exactly 1 minute.
Okay, I have 2 learnings.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, usually consultants only have max 3, otherwise people don't just remember.
Okay, so that's fine. I have a minute. So yeah, the first one is do not consider Nocode. Like, don't go into Nocode like that. It should be considered as any other stack. Like, consider it as a technical stack, and it will make it real professional. And yeah, use it with a product manager, like the state of the art of as if you want to build it with a backend engine. So yeah, the first feedback. The second feedback is it's not about doing Nocode for Nocode. So we use Nocode at Qonto because we had a use case behind. It was a technology that was perfect for us to build and iterate fastly with a low barrier entry. But it's not. We didn't choose Nocode because of Nocode. We wanted Nocode because it was on a given constraint in terms of resource. It was not using the backend, but we won't use Nocode for the payment system, payment capability, for example. We are using it for this specific use case. And we don't think on the technology and then apply this technology, the Nocode, into a use case. We think use case and the technology is answering to the constraints and the use case. That's how we should approach Nocode.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for the makers among us, you have something?
Also, many learnings, but the most important one here is a little bit the same, but as a technical no-code maker, it's not because it's no-code that you do not have to use standard development standards. So in web development, you have some rules, you have some things to respect in order to build something efficient and working well without any bugs, etc. So you have to have some basics on how developments work in order to be no-code makers on those kinds of systems, because we are at high level no-code development, because as I said, when you build an integration, what we are building today is having a lot of user stories, etc. So as we do not have some test-driven development, etc., we have to be very careful, very clear on this, because it's impacting our customers' tools, etc. So yeah, be aware of. It's not because you are a coder that you do not have to know or understand how web development works. It's the most important advice I will provide to you today.
Thanks a lot, both. If you want to jump at them after the conferences, we are Maxime from Qonto and Quentin from a maker from Alegria working for Qonto. You can find them in the alley and ask them more questions. But we'll a bit of the time if you want to ask some questions. First, okay. I think.
Thank you. That was very insightful. You said you came from an organization when you have your own developers. The lead time was too big, and etc. So you can find a setup which was fine with PMs, makers, backend engineers, bypass. Is there a step in the way when you tried something else? Because the reflex today for, I don't know, the startups or the scale-ups is go full no-code and then give them to the business and they will go faster and etc. And I think it's a big trap. So did you try this before going to hire makers, or what are the steps between those two?
So we tried backend engineer.
Yeah.
In this specific use case, we want to build integration. We tried. We kind of were disappointed. So then we addressed, Nocode was addressing the constraints. So we tried this way.
But specifically the makers, because when I think that when it's given to everyone in the company, it's a gigantic mess. Where did you say, okay, we need makers, we don't need a business that will use makers, etc. We build no coders, expert no coders.
Yeah, it's after a month trying, after month facing issue and trying to the product manager to build stuff. We said, okay, that's not. We know an operating system and a way of working that works with developers.
Yeah.
Okay, let's adopt the same. Let's face that we are not at the right level, and let's hire professional guys.
Yes, Maxime, it's a question for you. You guys recently developed a feature around invoicing. What was the rationale for this, and did you guys use any no-code?
Yeah, no, we don't use any no-code. So we consider invoicing as our core capability. It's a brand new product we launched in June. So as it's a core capability, we dedicated bandwidth for that. And this is like also an initiative that we are continuing to work on. it was preferable for us to do it on proper backend logic. Right now, the Nocode usage is very specific to integration. We know exactly what we're. Yeah, it's really the scope is well defined.